In a distant desert world beneath twin suns, an alien woman named Veyra is left to die by her own clan for being defective, her mind unable to bond as theirs do. But when a lone human scavenger, Aric, crash lands nearby and saves her, an impossible bond begins to form between two beings from opposite worlds. As they flee her clan's hunters and uncover fragments of erased history, Veyra learns the shocking truth. She is the result of a forbidden human-alien experiment meant to unite both species. Pursued by those who fear her existence, she must decide whether to surrender to her creators or embrace the human who risked everything to save her. Through betrayal, loss, and awakening, Veyra transcends both bloodlines to become something new, a hybrid consciousness born of sacrifice and compassion, and her final act changes the fate of two civilizations forever. Beneath the two suns, the desert glowed like molten glass. Winds carried whispers that cut across dunes of silver ash, shifting endlessly over bones that once belonged to creatures too proud to kneel. Among them lay a shape that was neither alive nor entirely dead, a slender alien woman, her skin pale with the hue of fading starlight. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse weak. The sands around her were scorched where her clan's transport had landed hours ago, leaving her behind like discarded cargo. They called her defective. Veyra had been born without the bond, the telepathic link that united her people into one seamless consciousness. To the clan, it made her broken, silent, unworthy of existence. She had grown up hearing thoughts she could never answer, feeling the weight of eyes that pitted her. When they finally decided she was a burden, they didn't execute her. They simply erased her. They left her beneath the twin suns with a shattered breathing mask and a broken transmitter. The desert would finish what they began. The light hurt her eyes now. Her lips cracked when she tried to whisper her own name, as if saying it could anchor her to life. But the wind took it away, carrying it into the endless void of the dunes. Her fingers twitched once, reaching toward the horizon, toward the ghost of a starship trail she thought she saw hours ago. Perhaps it was just another mirage. Then the sky screamed. A fire tore through the clouds, a long streak of burning metal that split the silence. Veyra's dimming eyes caught the reflection. A ship descending far too fast, flames trailing behind its wings. The sound reached her moments later, a thunderous crash echoing across the empty plains. The impact shook the sands beneath her and sent a wave of dust rolling toward the horizon. For the first time in days, her heartbeat quickened. She didn't know what it was or who, but something inside her refused to die. She dragged herself forward, inch by inch, leaving a trail of smeared silver blood behind her. Every breath felt like fire in her chest, but she kept crawling toward the smoke rising in the distance. The wreck was half buried when she reached it. One wing snapped, the hull torn apart by the desert's rough embrace. Through the haze of heat, she saw movement inside the cockpit. A figure slumped forward, armored but breathing. A human. Veyra had never seen one in person, only in the data fragments the elders kept sealed. Her people spoke of humans as primitive, chaotic, unrefined. But she felt something else when she looked at him, something alive. His ship bore the scars of atmospheric entry, his suit cracked and leaking oxygen. She reached for him just as he stirred. Aric blinked against the glare, his vision swimming. The crash had torn his shoulder open and shattered his NAV systems. He'd been hauling scavenged components through the edge systems when a magnetic storm tore through his route. Now, stranded on a planet not marked on any map, he stared in disbelief at the creature kneeling beside him. For a moment, neither moved. Dust swirled between them, gold and gray. Veyra's mouth opened, soft, melodic syllables emerging like music. Na HFY. Aric frowned. What? Her head tilted. She tried again, her voice weaker this time, her tone pleading. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Help. He moved carefully, his muscles stiff, and reached for the emergency pack. She flinched at first, instinctively retreating, but the exhaustion overcame her. When his gloved hand touched her arm, her entire body convulsed as if struck by lightning. For an instant, her vision exploded, not with pain, but with connection. She saw flashes, his ship, his memories, Earth's blue oceans seen from orbit. He felt something too, a pulse like static crawling through his nerves, a whisper in a language he'd never heard but somehow understood. Alive? A voice echoed in his head. He jerked his hand back, heart pounding. What the hell was that? But Veyra was crying softly now, tears glistening on her cheeks. For the first time, her mind wasn't silent. A faint thread hummed between them, fragile, unstable, but real. She tried to speak again, forming his word this time. Who, man? He nodded, still dazed. Yeah, human. Her lips trembled. Alive human. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. Yeah, and so are you, barely. He lifted her, careful of her injuries. Her skin was cool and strangely luminous under the suns. She weighed almost nothing, like holding a wisp of shadow. As he carried her back toward the ship, she looked up at him, studying every line of his face. The grit, the blood, the strange calm in his eyes. She had never been looked at like this before. Not with disgust, not with pity, just seen. The wreck's interior smelled of scorched metal. Aric cleared a space near the console and set her down. Stay still, he said, though he knew she couldn't understand. He activated the med injector, pressing it against her arm. The nanofluids hissed softly, repairing what they could. Her breathing steadied. The connection in her mind flickered again. Brief glimpses of his thoughts, his confusion, his worry. But beneath it all, a strange warmth. He looked at her, then at the endless dunes beyond. Guess it's just us now, he muttered. She didn't know his words, but she repeated the sound, quietly. Us. Outside, the suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the sands. The silence returned, heavy, infinite. Then, faintly, from somewhere far off, a tone pulsed through the air. It was deep, rhythmic, artificial. Aric frowned and turned toward the source. Veyra's eyes widened in fear. No, she whispered. A blue light flickered across the horizon, scanning beams sweeping through the desert. The beacon that had lain dormant beneath her skin for days had just activated, triggered by the human's touch. Her clan's retrieval signal, the mark of the condemned. They would know she still lived. Aric glanced at her, then at the glow expanding in the distance. What's happening? Veyra could barely form the words, but he heard them, faint trembling, inside his head rather than with his ears. They are coming. The ground hummed beneath them. He looked out into the desert, where the horizon was no longer empty. A shimmer of distant light gathered into shapes, metallic, deliberate, fast-moving. Aric's hand tightened on the hatch lever. Then we'd better move. The wind howled, kicking up storms of dust as the first drone shadows crept closer. Inside the broken ship, the dying alien and the stranded human locked eyes, neither understanding the other's world, but both knowing this. Survival now depended on trust neither of them had ever learned to give. Outside, the beacon pulsed again, brighter, stronger. The desert answered back with silence, right before the sky began to burn. The next dawn broke like a wound across the horizon, bleeding pale light over the dunes. Aric sat in the shadow of his wrecked ship, wrist deep in a mess of torn circuitry and melted connectors. The air still shimmered with radiation from the crash, but he ignored the warnings flashing across his visor. Every time he looked over his shoulder, he saw her lying on the ship's floor, motionless but breathing. Veyra. He'd heard the name through the translation unit, half garbled by static when she'd whispered it hours ago. The device was a patchwork of alien tech he'd scavenged years back. Barely functional, but it was all he had. Now it served as the only bridge between two minds that shouldn't have met. Her wounds were unlike anything he'd seen. Silver veins that glowed faintly beneath her skin, closing and reopening as if her body couldn't decide whether to heal or give up. He tried to disinfect them, only to realize her blood hissed when it touched oxygen. The medkit nanites had stabilized her vitals, but not much else. Come on, he muttered to himself, slamming a panel shut. The engine core flickered to life for half a second before dying again. Just a few more hours, and we might both get off this rock alive. Behind him, a soft sound. He turned. Veyra was awake barely. Her eyes reflected the light like molten mercury. She stared at him, confusion and fear mingling in every slow breath. "Easy," Aric said, raising his hands. "You're safe." She blinked, trying to process his tone if not his words. "Sci-fi." He nodded. "Yeah, safe." Her gaze drifted to his sidearm lying within reach. Her people would have called him primitive, yet here he was, risking exposure, dehydration, maybe death, for a stranger who didn't even see him as equal. "Why?" she whispered, though the translator lagged before echoing the sound in his earpiece. He frowned. "Why what?" "Help me." He hesitated. The obvious answer would have been duty or curiosity, but that wasn't it. He'd seen the way she'd looked at him, like someone who'd already accepted death and didn't understand mercy. He'd spent enough years in space to know what loneliness looked like. "Because you were dying," he said simply, "and I couldn't just watch." Her expression barely changed, but something in her eyes softened. She turned her face toward the hatch, watching the desert shimmer beyond it. "Human," she said slowly, testing the word as though tasting it. He smiled faintly. "That's me." When the twin suns rose higher, the temperature spiked. Radiation readings ticked upward. The ship's shielding was weak, so Aric sealed most compartments and powered only the essentials. He rationed oxygen, water, and food. When Veyra stirred restlessly, he gave her his own supply of purified water. She refused it at first, shaking her head weakly. "Drink," he insisted. Her throat trembled as she obeyed. The translator crackled again. "You risk." He shrugged. "It's just water." But it wasn't. The nearest underground reservoir was nearly 20 kilometers away, filled with irradiated minerals. He'd have to go out there into the storm fields to refill the tanks. She watched him strap on his oxygen mask and shoulder the canisters. Her clan would have never done that for her. No one ever had. "Stay inside," he said. "If that beacon's still active, we're not alone." The wind greeted him outside with a shriek. The suns burned through the thin clouds, painting the desert in waves of gold and heat. He moved fast, keeping low, counting his steps between the dunes. When he reached the first fissure, he set up the portable filter and began the slow process of drawing up the metallic water. The radiation gauge spiked red, but he stayed until the canisters filled. Hours later, when he stumbled back into the ship, he looked half dead himself. Face burned, suit coated in sand, eyes red from exposure. He dropped the canisters beside her and gave a weak grin. "Told you I'd find some." Veyra pushed herself upright, her hands trembling. The translator whispered his words again, but she didn't need it. The gesture spoke for itself. Her clan had taught her that humans were violent, selfish creatures. Yet this fragile, broken human was burning himself alive to keep her breathing. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing his wrist. He froze as the connection flared again. Soft this time, like a spark of warmth rather than pain. For an instant, he saw flashes from her mind. A towering citadel, her people's faces turning away. The moment she realized she was alone, she pulled back quickly, as if ashamed. "You see?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I saw." "Now, you know," she whispered. He swallowed hard, unsure what to say. "I know they don't deserve you." Her lips parted in surprise. No one had ever spoken about her that way. Silence settled between them. Strange, fragile, almost peaceful. Then the peace broke. A faint hum rose from beyond the dunes, steady and mechanical. Aric froze, turning toward the sound. The readings on his scanner began to spike. Veyra felt it too, the familiar rhythm of synchronized flight, the psychic static that always preceded the arrival of her kind's patrol drones. "No," she breathed. He moved to the viewport. In the glare of the suns, something huge glided across the sky, sleek, metallic, casting a shadow that swallowed the wreck whole. "Aric?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He stared up at the shadow as it passed directly overhead, its scanning lights flickering across the dunes. "Looks like your family's come looking for you." Her heart pounded in her chest. "Not family," she said. "Hunters." The hum grew louder. Sand lifted off the ground in swirls beneath the craft's engines. Aric grabbed his weapon, then the emergency EMP pack, slinging it over his shoulder. He turned to her, his face calm despite the terror creeping up his spine. "You helped me survive the crash," he said quietly. "Now it's my turn." She shook her head, panic in her eyes. "If they find you, they will kill." He smiled, a tired, reckless smile. "They can try." Outside, the sky darkened as the patrol drones began to descend. Their lights swept over the wreck, scanning for life signs. One beam froze directly on Veyra's chest. Her implanted beacon pulsed bright blue in response, betraying her location. Aric cursed under his breath. The drones shifted into attack formation. Veyra's voice cracked, filled with a mix of fear and guilt. "My signal. They find me because of you." He looked at her, then at the horizon crawling with silver shapes. "Then we'll make sure they regret it." The desert erupted in wind and light. The first beam lanced through the sand, cutting the air where they just stood. Aric pulled her down behind the wreck's hull as explosions rolled across the dunes. Inside the wreckage, sparks showered from broken panels. The hum of the patrols grew deafening, circling closer. Veyra pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the beacon's pulse beneath her skin. "They will not stop," she whispered, voice shaking. Aric chambered a round into his rifle, eyes narrowing. "Neither will I." Outside, the shadow passed overhead once more, blotting out both suns, an omen of what was coming next. Under the flickering lights of the half-repaired ship, Aric worked in silence, sweat running down his neck as the hum of the plasma torch filled the air. The air inside the small craft was thin, carrying the faint metallic scent of coolant and burnt circuits. Beneath the grating floor panels lay Veyra, hidden among spare parts and wrapped in a thermal blanket that once belonged to his crew. Every minute, he checked the scanner, hoping the radiation storms outside would mask their signatures. But he knew it was only a matter of time before someone came looking. Outside, the twin suns were setting over the crimson dunes, painting the wreckage fields in bleeding orange light. Aric had been a scavenger long enough to know the difference between random patrols and coordinated sweeps, and the dots moving on his radar were too precise to be random. He turned down the power on his reactor, forcing the ship into near silence. The soft thrum faded into a tense stillness broken only by the sound of Veyra's shallow breathing below. When the knock came, it wasn't a sound but a vibration. The air around the ship trembled. Pulse scanner. Aric's heart pounded. He moved toward the door, keeping his blaster low. The voice that followed was mechanical, filtered through translation tech. "Human vessel. You are trespassing on restricted territory. State your purpose." He opened the hatch slowly, forcing a smile he didn't feel. "Scavenger class. Crash-landed during storm activity. I'm repairing my reactor. Won't be long." The patrol drones floated closer, their mirrored carapaces reflecting his own grim face back at him. A larger drone hovered in the center, projecting a hologram of an alien enforcer. Tall, sharp-featured, eyes like glass. "A fugitive has escaped containment. Female of Clan Sithra. Her biosignature was detected near this sector. Have you seen her?" Aric hesitated only a fraction of a second, but it felt eternal. "No, haven't seen anyone. Just junk metal and radiation ghosts." The alien's image leaned forward, studying him through the screen. "Humans are known for lying when desperate." Aric forced a small laugh. "We're also known for surviving when we shouldn't." There was a pause, long enough for the sweat on his neck to cool. Then the hologram flickered out. "Proceed with repairs. Leave this system within 24 cycles." The drones began to withdraw. Aric stood frozen, not daring to exhale until the last one disappeared over the ridge. Beneath the floor, Veyra trembled. She had heard everything. Every word, every heartbeat of fear. Her kind did not understand lies. They considered them a primitive flaw. Yet this human had lied to beings far stronger than him, just to protect her. Aric lifted the grating once the scanners faded out. "You're safe," he said quietly, though he doubted she understood. Her skin shimmered faintly in the low light, veins glowing with strange pulses. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting both confusion and something new, trust. Then her body spasmed. Her head jerked back, her breath catching in her throat. Lines of light surged along her implants, pulsing faster and faster until they burned white-hot. "Veyra!" Aric reached for her, but the air crackled with static. Her hand shot up, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. Through the translator, the words came broken and distorted, fragments of meaning stitched together by the device. "Memory transfer. Cannot stop." Her eyes widened as if seeing something far away, something that wasn't in this ship, wasn't even in this time. The lights flickered violently, the consoles sparking to life on their own. Aric could see images flashing across the screens. Alien cities, ritual chambers, faces that weren't his. Her clan, her past, her execution. And then she whispered, almost inaudibly, "They found us." Outside, the sky lit up with streaks of blue fire. More drones descending fast. The ground shook under the weight of their approach. Aric pulled her close as alarms blared across the ship. But before he could move her to safety, Veyra's eyes rolled back, and her body went limp. The implants dimmed to a faint glow. And on the ship's display, alien symbols appeared, coordinates pulsing in a pattern he didn't recognize. Coordinates that weren't sent from outside. They were coming from her. The hum of the ship's damaged engines was the only sound left after the chaos outside faded. Smoke curled from cracked panels, and Aric moved through it with his pulse hammer still in hand, heart still pounding. The alien drones were gone for now, but the damage had been done. Circuits overloaded, systems fried, and the woman who'd somehow pulled him into all this lay motionless on the medbed. Her implants flickered like fading stars under her skin. He ran a diagnostic sweep on her vitals, trying to make sense of the strange data flowing across the screen. Brainwave activity erratic but alive. Energy signatures unstable but recovering. Then he noticed something else. Bursts of information radiating from her neural core, like data packets transmitting without command. They weren't random. They formed patterns, images, symbols, fragments of alien code. When her eyes opened, they weren't the same. The usual soft violet hue had deepened into a fierce, electric glow. She looked around as if waking up somewhere unfamiliar. "Aric," she said softly, her voice layered, two tones at once. Her own and something beneath it, older, heavier. He froze. "You remember my name?" She nodded slowly, eyes distant. "I remember many things, but not all of them are mine." He stepped closer, careful, like approaching a wounded animal. "What do you mean?" Her gaze flicked to the console. The screen beside her came to life, displaying an image she hadn't touched. A diagram of neural lattices, genetic strands interwoven with foreign structures. "They called it the Unison Project," she whispered. "A bridge between minds. My clan believed that humans had something missing from our evolution. Something emotional, irrational, yet powerful. They thought merging with it could make us complete." Aric frowned. "You're saying they experimented on your people?" Her lips tightened. "On both. They took human genetic samples from old war wrecks. Your species was supposed to be extinct beyond the border sectors. But your biology survived. They tried to make it compatible. I was the first viable result. And the last." Aric felt the air go cold. He'd scavenged enough derelict ships to know what viable result meant in alien science. "And they abandoned you when it failed?" Her eyes darkened. "Not failed. Changed. They said my mind began echoing thoughts that weren't my own. Dreams of things that never happened. A planet of oceans and forests. Machines built from steel, not plasma. Faces that spoke words I didn't understand. And one of those faces," she hesitated, as if afraid to say it, "was yours." The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. Aric blinked, the absurdity of it clawing at his brain. Me? I wasn't even born then. I've never left the frontier worlds until now. I know, she said. That's why it shouldn't be possible. But when you touched me in the desert, something connected. I saw fragments. A man in a blue uniform, human insignia on his chest, standing beside alien scientists. He was giving them data, human DNA samples. Aric's breath caught. That's impossible. Humanity never reached this far. We don't even know your kind existed until a few decades ago. Her implants flared again, the glow spreading across her temples. Maybe you didn't come here. Maybe they went to you. He felt the ground tilt beneath him, the kind of realization that shatters logic. You're saying your clan visited Earth? No, she whispered. I'm saying they created something human, and it might have started with you. Before he could answer, the medbay lights flickered, and the ship's main console flashed a warning. Incoming transmission encrypted, unknown origin. The symbol that appeared next was unmistakable. The emblem of her clan, the same sigil branded onto her wrist. Veyra gasped, clutching her head. No, it's too soon. They found the signal. Aric rushed to stabilize the feed, but before he could cut the power, Veyra went rigid. Her eyes rolled back as another vision seized her. Flashes of a laboratory, cold blue lights, the sound of human voices shouting, and one face standing over her, his face. Not as he was now, but older, worn, wearing the same insignia she'd described. He looked directly at her through the memory, or maybe through time, and said, "You weren't supposed to wake up yet." When she snapped back to reality, she was trembling violently. "Aric," she whispered, voice barely holding together. "I saw you, but not here, not now. You were one of them." The ship's hull vibrated under the force of something locking onto their position. Warning alarms blared. Aric stared at her, his pulse hammer slipping from his grasp as her words sank in. He stepped closer, heart racing. "Veyra, what did you just say?" Her eyes met his, full of fear and a strange, heartbreaking certainty. "You're not just my rescuer. You're the beginning of what they became." And before he could speak again, the ship shook with the force of a boarding clamp sealing into place. The planet's night was strange. Twin moons drifting like white scars in a violet sky, their cold light sweeping over dunes of iron dust. Inside the half-broken freighter, silence hummed between two breaths, the kind that comes only after truths too heavy to speak. Aric sat at the console, replaying the transmission again and again, her clan's beacon, the strange frequency echoing his name in distorted alien cadence. Veyra sat across from him, eyes vacant, her implants pulsing softly in rhythm with the ship's reactor core, as though she were connected to something unseen. "Say something?" Aric muttered finally, his voice hoarse. "You said you saw me in a memory that isn't yours. Maybe we're missing something. Maybe they copied human data into you." Her head tilted slowly, as if listening to someone else. "They didn't copy it," she murmured. "They preserved it." He turned toward her. "Preserved what?" "My other self." Before he could respond, she looked up sharply. Eyes unfocused, voice trembling. "It's speaking again." Aric frowned. "Who?" "The voice," she whispered. "It's inside me. To me but not. Speaks in your tongue. It knows your systems, your protocols, even your command codes." He approached carefully. "Veyra, you might be hallucinating. You've been through hell." She shook her head violently. "No. Told me where to go. There's something in orbit, an object circling this planet for centuries. It wants me to find it." He blinked, uneasy. "An object? A satellite," she said. "Ancient, human-made, but altered." He wanted to dismiss it, but the more she spoke, the more he felt that cold, rational dread that soldiers used to describe as the moment before impact, when your instincts knew the truth long before your mind caught up. "You're saying there's a human satellite orbiting an alien world that humans never reached?" "Yes." She looked at him now, eyes burning. "And it knows your name." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Aric exhaled, scrubbed a hand over his face, and said, "Fine. Let's go find your ghost. The journey to the satellite was rough, the freighter stabilizers barely functioning, its shields flickering with every gust of cosmic radiation. But Veyra guided him unerringly, reading gravitational drift data like she'd memorized it. She navigated with closed eyes, whispering strings of coordinates in both human and alien syntax. Aric kept glancing at her. How her implants pulsed whenever she finished a sequence. How her voice seemed layered. One tone hers, one distinctly human. Finally, the ship's sensors pinged. An object ahead, dark and drifting, its shape skeletal against the starlight. The satellite was massive, far larger than any human-era tech. Its hull was etched with alien glyphs, but beneath them, half faded through corrosion, was something impossible. The remnants of a human insignia, an Earth fleet emblem, 2 centuries old. Impossible, Aric breathed. That's pre-Exodus tech. We never got this far. Veyra stared at it like someone seeing a dream come true. The voice says it's called the Arc node. It was meant to carry genetic archives, both human and alien. The first bridge. Her words hit like a whisper from history. Aric maneuvered closer, activating docking clamps. Why would your people have this? They erased all trace of us. Because they didn't want the truth found, she said softly. They boarded through a ruptured airlock, drifting into corridors filled with dust and ghost light. The air was dead, the silence deeper than space itself. Frozen consoles lined the walls, symbols blinking in faint blue. Alien script mixed with human binary. Aric ran his gloved hand across a panel, trying to reactivate it. Whatever happened here, it's been dormant for a long time. Veyra stepped forward, her implants flaring brighter. The panel lit under her touch. Human words scrolled across the screen. Project. Unison. Command override. Aric 7B. Aric froze. That's my name. That's my code signature. She turned slowly toward him, horror and awe mixing in her voice. The voice wasn't lying. The ship shuddered suddenly, lights flaring across the satellite as dormant systems woke one by one. The entire structure groaned like a giant taking its first breath in centuries. Across every alien frequency Aric's comms could detect, one signal cut through, a single broadcast on every channel, repeating endlessly. Aric Mercer identified. Reclamation protocol activated. Veyra staggered back as the lights turned crimson. It's calling you, she whispered. Across their networks. Every clan, every world will hear it. Aric stared at the glowing consoles, the words repeating like a heartbeat, his name echoing through alien space. For the first time since he met her, he felt something colder than fear, the realization that maybe he wasn't the savior in her story at all. And somewhere deep within the satellite, a door hissed open, releasing a soft, mechanical voice that spoke in perfect English. Welcome back, Commander Mercer. The satellite's corridors seemed to breathe as power surged back through them. Panels flickering, conduits humming with life after centuries of silence. Aric stood frozen before the terminal that had just called him Commander Mercer. The name pulsed in steady rhythm on every display. Veyra was beside him, trembling as she looked around, her eyes flickering between blue and violet. They buried this place, she whispered. They erased it from every archive. But it's still here, still remembering you. Aric's voice came out tight. I've never been here before. The terminal answered in a tone that was calm but hauntingly human. Correction. Commander Mercer's genetic pattern verified. 99.87% match. Subject lineage confirmed through Unison Seed Project. Aric took a step back, shaking his head. That's not possible. I'm a scavenger. Not a ghost. Veyra finished for him, her voice shaking. But maybe a descendant. The console shifted its display, unfolding a holographic record. They watched as grainy footage emerged. A human scientist, Aric's mirror image but older, standing beside an alien elder. Behind them, tanks lined the walls, each one holding a humanoid figure suspended in blue light. The voiceover spoke in 2 languages, merging human English with the flowing tones of Veyra's people. Unison Seed Project. Phase 3. Cross-neural hybridization successful. Subject V0YRA exhibits stable dual cognition. Host may act as biological bridge between species. The video glitched, skipping frames, then came a flash of shouting, alarms, the human scientist slamming a console. No, you can't terminate her. She's the proof we both exist. The recording ended abruptly. Aric's throat tightened. That's you, isn't it? He said quietly. Veyra stared at the dark screen, unable to speak. The idea clawed through her. The voice in her mind, the memories that weren't hers, the feeling that part of her had always been watching from a distance. He gave them your DNA, she said finally, looking up at him. You're his echo. That's why the satellite knows you. Aric's pulse pounded in his ears. He tried to process it, the impossible truth that his lineage was tied to an experiment long before humanity ever reached this sector. He looked at her, her trembling hands, her eyes filled with alien light and something deeply human. Then what does that make us? Her reply came barely above a whisper. The secret they buried. The ship suddenly groaned around them. Warning symbols flared red. A low rumble shook the walls, and a voice echoed through the comms. Cold, mechanical, unmistakably alien. Unauthorized activation detected. Reclamation protocol. Termination. Aric sprinted to the control panel, trying to override the system. They've found us. Veyra reached beside him, her implants connecting to the console. I can block the signal. No, he snapped. If you link again, they'll trace you. But it was too late. The console flared to life as she linked directly, her body trembling from the overload. The display erupted with streams of alien glyphs and human code overlapping in a chaotic spiral. She screamed, and through her scream came another voice, deeper, older, the echo of the scientist himself. If you hear this, they destroyed everything. The project, the records, even her name. But the seed remains. Protect her. She's the key. Then silence. The message cut off and the lights dimmed. Aric reached for her as she slumped to her knees, smoke rising from the implants across her temples. He caught her before she fell completely, her breathing shallow but steady. Veyra, stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open, and she whispered, They're coming. The ship's sensors screamed a warning. Aric rushed to the viewport and his stomach turned cold. Above the planet, breaking through the clouds like an iron spear, descended a massive warship, her clan's flagship, its hull carved with the sigil of the High Nexus. They know I'm awake, Veyra said weakly. Then we're out of time. He pulled her toward the escape bay, helping her into the shuttle as the satellite began to shake violently. Systems overloaded, flames licking through ruptured conduits. He glanced back at the control deck one last time. The console was flashing with one final transmission. A message looping endlessly, written in both human and alien code. Unison failed. The child survived. Then the explosion tore through the satellite, a blossom of white light against the void. The shockwave hurled their shuttle clear, spinning through debris and fire. Aric clung to the controls, Veyra unconscious beside him, as alarms blared and metal screamed. Through the cracked viewport, he saw the warship descending through the atmosphere, vast and merciless. He steadied the shuttle and whispered under his breath, We're not done yet. Behind him, in the faint hum of the ship's dying systems, a voice spoke once more. Not human, not alien, but something in between. Commander Mercer. She remembers you. The warship loomed like a black cathedral over the planet's burning horizon, its vast hull swallowing the light from the suns. Inside, the corridors pulsed with living metal, veins of bioluminescence tracing through the walls like arteries. Aric hung suspended in a containment field, wrists bound by bands of shifting plasma. Every breath tasted of iron and static. Somewhere beyond the hum of machinery, he could hear her, Veyra's muffled cries echoing through the ship's neural chambers. They'd been captured the moment their shuttle was pulled into orbit. He'd fought, of course, but against a fleet's worth of telepathic soldiers. Fists meant nothing. He'd watched them drag Veyra away while she screamed his name, the sound slicing through his skull like a blade. Now, alone in this shimmering cell, All he could do was wait. The door dissolved into mist, and an alien figure stepped through. Tall, clad in black armor streaked with gold. Her presence radiated authority, her voice smooth as glass. "Human, you have no understanding of what you've meddled with." Aric met her gaze, breathing hard. "I didn't come here to meddle. I came to save her." The alien tilted her head, curious, almost amused. "You speak as if you own her." "She's not property," he growled. "She's a person." The woman smiled faintly, and that's when Aric noticed it. The same violet hue in her eyes that Veyra had. The same faint pattern across her skin. "You're her mother," he said slowly. The faintest crack of emotion crossed her expression before it hardened again. "I am High Matron Karen of the Nexus, the one your kind defiled with their experiments, the one whose daughter became their failed bridge." "She didn't fail," Aric said. "She survived." Karen stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Survived? No. She carries the infection of your species, the chaos, the emotion, the flaw. But perhaps, if she chooses correctly, we can erase what remains of you from her mind and make her whole again." Before Aric could respond, the walls pulsed, and the containment field brightened. Karen placed her hand against the shimmering barrier. "You'll tell us what remains of the Unison data. We know you activated the satellite." Aric clenched his teeth as electricity lanced through his body. Pain flared white-hot, searing every nerve. "I don't know anything." Karen watched him for a moment longer, then turned away. "You humans always say that. Yet your blood tells another story." The cell dimmed, leaving him gasping in the dark. Meanwhile, deep within the ship's neural core, Veyra floated in a web of light. The machinery around her hummed with psychic energy, forcing her to relive fragments of memory. The laboratory, her father's face, the moment of her abandonment. Her mother's voice echoed from every direction. "You were not meant to wake, my child. You were meant to remain a dream." Veyra struggled against the neural tethers, her mind flashing with images of Aric screaming under torture. "Stop it! Leave him alone!" Karen appeared before her, not physically but as a projection of thought. Calm, radiant, terrifying. "He is your contamination. The link between you is a wound. End it and you can return home. I will welcome you back, as my daughter, as pure." For a heartbeat, Veyra faltered. The longing inside her was a storm, the desire to belong, to be seen, to be whole. "You would take me back?" Karen's tone softened. "If you sever him from your mind, if you betray the human." The tethers tightened. Pain blossomed behind her eyes. She could feel Aric's thoughts bleeding through. Faint, broken, but alive. "Don't let her break you. Don't let them win." Something inside Veyra snapped. The implants along her spine flared white-hot. "You call it contamination?" she whispered. "But it's the only thing that ever made me feel real." She reached deep into the connection, not to sever it, but to merge it. The neural link she shared with Aric expanded in a surge of impossible energy. Every frequency, every psychic barrier screamed as two consciousnesses collided. Alarms erupted throughout the ship. Karen staggered, clutching her head as her mental link fractured under the blast. "What have you done?" Veyra's voice split into two, hers and Aric's, echoing in perfect unison. "We're rewriting your control." The containment fields across the warship shattered. Aric fell to the floor as the walls pulsed violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling as systems overloaded. He could feel her, not just hear her, her thoughts laced with his, guiding him. "Run. To the bridge." He obeyed instinctively, sprinting through flickering corridors while alien soldiers collapsed, clutching their heads. Veyra appeared in front of him, not walking but gliding through a corridor of shattering light. Her implants blazed like stars. She reached for him. "Hold on to me." He did. The ship screamed. Every neural conduit ruptured as their minds fused fully, overwhelming the systems that powered the vessel's consciousness. Karen's voice thundered through the collapsing halls. "You'll kill us all." Veyra's reply was barely a whisper, but it carried through the psychic storm. Then you'll finally understand what it means to be human. The bridge exploded in a cascade of energy. The warship lurched violently, fire spreading across its hull as gravitational control failed. Through the viewport, the planet's surface loomed closer, clouds boiling beneath them, the desert waiting like an open grave. Aric tried to steer, but the controls melted in his hands. Veyra clutched his arm, eyes blazing, a faint smile touching her lips despite the chaos. "We're not dying here," she said. Then the warship's engines imploded. The vessel turned into a falling star, tearing through the atmosphere, trailing fire and wreckage across the sky. The last thing Aric saw before impact was Veyra's hand reaching toward his, and the faint whisper of her mother's voice over the comms. "My daughter, what have you become?" The sky was burning again. The warship's remains still smoked across the dunes, molten shards embedded in the cracked soil like dying stars. Aric lay motionless beside a ruptured bulkhead, blood seeping from a dozen wounds that shimmered under the light of the twin suns. Veyra crawled toward him, every nerve in her body trembling, her vision flickering between alien code and human color. She could feel his pulse weakening through the faint neural link still connecting them, the one she'd forced open to escape the ship. "Aric?" Her voice cracked, no longer purely her own. The syllables tasted strange, weighted with two languages at once. He stirred, just barely. His helmet was shattered, visor half melted into the sand. "Veyra," he rasped. You made it." Her hand hovered above his chest, afraid to touch him. The heat radiating from his skin was wrong, unstable, fading fast. Her senses flared, detecting cellular breakdown. His heart rate was collapsing, and yet, her own readings were stabilizing. Her body, once decaying from genetic rejection, now pulsed with balance, symmetry. Human DNA was merging perfectly with her alien structure. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't be happening. She scanned him again, her fingers trembling. "No," she whispered. You're becoming part of me." He laughed weakly, a sound more like a cough. "Yes. That makes us even." Memories surged, his memories now inside her. A desert from another world, blue skies, laughter echoing in gravity she had never known. She saw him as a child, running through rain. She had never seen rain before. The image cut through her like a blade. She pressed her forehead to his, desperate, confused. "You have to stay. I can fix this. I can." Her body spasmed. A shock wave rippled from her chest as her implants activated, linking deeper. Data flooded her mind, uninvited coordinates, research logs, forbidden memories of the experiment that had created her. The human genome, the project that joined two incompatible minds. It was never meant to succeed. It was never meant to feel. Her clan's voice whispered inside her, cold and mechanical. Half mind, broken code. You were meant to be erased. "No," she hissed, clutching Aric's hand. "You erased yourselves." She looked down at him, the man who should have left her in the desert, the one who had chosen to help instead, the human who shouldn't have mattered. And now, because of that choice, both of them stood on the edge of something impossible. He blinked up at her, his eyes cloudy but still alive. "You remember, when I said stars don't die, they just change shape?" She nodded slowly, tears burning down her cheeks. "Yes." He smiled faintly. "Then, maybe we're changing shape too." Her neural readings spiked again, the merging process accelerating. His cells were disintegrating, but the energy signature within his neural map was syncing to hers. Consciousness overlap. Full compatibility in 0.8 minutes. Her processors screamed warnings. Complete merge meant one mind, one body, one life. She couldn't let him fade, but if she saved him this way, there would be no her left either. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. He breathed shallowly. "Then don't." She froze. That voice, it wasn't his lips that moved. It was inside her head, echoing through the link. "Aric." The voice came again, clearer now. "You said I shouldn't have helped you. Maybe this was why." Her heart hammered. "This isn't you. The neural interface. Maybe it is me, the voice interrupted gently. Maybe we were always meant to meet here, in the middle of everything broken. She trembled, pressing her palms against the sand as waves of pain coursed through her. The integration was almost complete. Energy arced between their bodies, blue-white light lacing through the air like veins of lightning. Around them, the wreckage began to hum, resonating with frequencies beyond sound. Images flashed in her mind, her mother's face, cold and distant, the laboratory where she was created, the whispers of scientists who called her prototype Failure 01, and then Aric, standing before her in 1,000 fragments of memory she couldn't have lived. Him looking through glass at something inside a tank. Her breath caught. You were there. What? His voice flickered, half internal, half external. In the lab, she said softly. You were part of the original human test crew. Decades ago. Before I was born. You volunteered for neural mapping. The data they took from you, they built me with it. He was silent, and for a long moment she thought she'd lost him. Then a whisper brushed her mind. Then maybe. That's why I recognized your eyes. The realization shattered her. He hadn't just found her in the desert. He had found himself through her. Every moment between them, every strange connection, every dream they'd shared had been echoes of that lost link. The suns dimmed behind a thick cloud of smoke. The air grew colder. Her time was running out. His vitals were dropping below survival thresholds. Her mind screamed to choose. Let him die and preserve her consciousness, or merge and save both in one fragile, untested fusion. Veyra, the voice murmured. Whatever happens next, make it count. She closed her eyes. You would do the same for me. And deep inside, she already knew he would. The wind picked up, scattering ash across the dunes. She placed her hand on his heart, then over her own. The pulses synchronized for a moment, two rhythms aligning perfectly, then everything went still. She whispered, Forgive me. The world erupted in light. Energy surged outward in a blinding sphere, vaporizing sand and metal. For a heartbeat, all sound ceased. Time itself seemed to fold. When the light finally dimmed, the wreckage lay silent again, a crater glowing faintly in the twilight. At the center of it, something moved. A figure, neither human nor alien. Its skin faintly luminescent, eyes shifting between two colors. It stumbled forward, collapsing to its knees. For a moment it seemed lost. Then it breathed, a sound that was both a gasp and a whisper. Aric? It said, though the voice carried echoes of two beings. No one answered. Only the desert wind replied, carrying whispers of memory through the fractured air. The figure raised its head, looking toward the horizon where the alien fleet now glimmered like ghosts. His pulse quickened. He didn't remember who it was, not fully. But deep inside, two minds stirred together, bound by one impossible truth. They were not separate anymore. And somewhere, beneath the silence, a heartbeat began again. A sound that belonged to both. Then the light returned, brighter than before, consuming everything in white. When the wind shifted across the desert of broken stars, the sand sang faintly, a soft electric hum, as if the planet itself remembered what had happened there. For weeks, the wreck of the alien warship had lain half-buried, a grave of twisted alloy and shattered glass, its hull still whispering with residual static. Then, one morning, a shimmer of movement disturbed the dunes. A search craft descended sleek, silver, bearing the sigil of the High Clan. The recovery team stepped out in radiation suits, scanners sweeping the ground. Life signs, one of them said, disbelief in their tone. Minimal but stable. They followed the signal toward a crater. At its center lay a figure, pale, motionless, half buried in ash. Not quite alien, not quite human. His hair shimmered silver blue in the light. Its skin bore faint glowing threads beneath the surface, like circuitry pulsing in rhythm with a heart. When they approached, the figure's eyes snapped open. One was human green, the other, alien blue. The search commander froze. Identify yourself. The being blinked slowly, disoriented. I am. The voice was fractured. Male and female tones fused, harmonizing and conflicting all at once. What is your designation? The commander demanded again, raising his weapon slightly. The being tilted its head, as if listening to something distant, then said softly, "He saved me, so I became us." The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. The commander frowned, tapping his wrist console. "Notify the High Council. We've found something." They carried the hybrid aboard the ship. It didn't resist, but its gaze wandered constantly, scanning the world as if seeing it for the first time through two overlapping memories. As the engines lifted them skyward, the hybrid looked out at the horizon. Beneath the thin layer of sand, the remains of Aric's ship were visible. Something inside it pulsed once. A faint blue light, then nothing. Inside the medlab, machines surrounded the hybrid, analyzing, sampling, dissecting with gentle precision. The readings were impossible, dual genetic signatures intertwined, no separation, full neural merge. The alien scientists whispered to each other. "This cannot exist," one said. "The human genome cannot bond with ours at that level." "Then explain how it's breathing," another muttered. The hybrid stirred, voice faint. "Because we refused to die." The researchers froze. The commander stepped forward. "Who are you?" The hybrid met his gaze. "You already erased us once. You won't do it again." The words carried weight, something ancient, almost like memory. The commander felt a chill. "You remember?" "I remember everything," the hybrid said. Her pain, his choice, the moment two dying souls refused to stay separate. The alien hesitated. "You mean the human from the crash?" "Yes," the hybrid whispered. "Aric, he saw what you couldn't. That imperfection doesn't mean failure." They didn't speak after that. They only sedated the hybrid and sent a silent transmission to the capital. Days later, in the high spires of the alien council city, the hybrid was brought before the assembly. 1,000 luminous figures in ceremonial robes, eyes gleaming like cold stars. Veyra's mother sat among them, face carved in stone. The hybrid stood unshackled in the center of the chamber, back straight, gaze steady. "You stand accused of contaminating the bloodline," the High Elder intoned. "You are a genetic violation, an unauthorized fusion of human and Ellerin consciousness." The hybrid's lips curved faintly. Unauthorized? Or simply unplanned? A murmur rippled through the council. "Blasphemy," someone hissed. "Perhaps," the hybrid said. "But I am alive. Can any of you say you understand what life means better than I do?" The High Elder leaned forward. "You are not one of us." The hybrid's gaze softened. "Then who am I?" For a moment the hall fell silent. The hybrid's voice, that strange harmonic of two souls, filled the air like a vibration that touched something deep within each listener. "You called her defective. You called him primitive. But together we found balance. Maybe that's what you feared most. Proof that we were never enemies, only halves waiting to meet." Veyra's mother rose. "Enough." Her voice was steady, but her eyes trembled. "This creature is a danger. Its existence defies the order that sustains our people. I will see it purged." The hybrid turned toward her, and for an instant, the woman saw not a stranger, but her daughter's eyes. "Mother," the hybrid said softly, "you gave me life. He gave me reason." The elder froze, but before she could answer, the chamber erupted in chaos. Overlapping voices, orders, alarms. The genetic scanners had activated mid-session, their readings broadcasting to the entire assembly. The data was clear. The hybrid's neural network contained both alien and human consciousness signatures operating simultaneously, two identities in perfect coexistence. "Impossible," one scientist gasped. "This is forbidden technology. It's evolution," the hybrid interrupted. Security units stormed the chamber. The commander who had first found the hybrid raised his weapon reluctantly. "I'm sorry," he said under his breath. "They've declared you an abomination." The hybrid smiled faintly. "They declared her that once too." And then the lights went out. A surge of power rippled through the hall, systems flickering, comms jamming. The hybrid's body glowed faintly as their implants reactivated. In the confusion, the hybrid vanished, dissolving into the upper levels of the city before security could react. Outside, night cloaked the towers. Rain fell, acid rain that hissed against metal streets. And for the first time in generations, someone looked up through it with both human wonder and alien memory. The hybrid ran until dawn, hiding among ruins and scavenger markets, feeling the echo of two hearts beating in one body. Fragments of Aric's voice whispered through the neural link. "Keep moving. They're afraid of what you mean." "I know," the hybrid whispered. "But what if I'm afraid too? Then you're still human enough to matter." That made the hybrid stop, in the middle of the street, under the dying glow of the city's upper spires, and breathe for a moment. They realized that even in fear, they felt alive. And that meant Aric was still there. Somewhere in the code, somewhere in the pulse that guided their every step. But peace didn't last. High above, in the skies that had once carried warships, the clan's broadcast echoed across the planet. The message was simple and absolute. The hybrid has awakened. It is to be hunted and destroyed. All sectors initiate purge protocol. In the streets, people froze. Some looked up in awe. Others ran. And the hybrid, standing alone beneath the endless rain, closed their eyes as thousands of drones began to descend through the clouds. They whispered softly, "He saved me. Now I'll save us." And then they vanished into the storm. Far away, on the edge of the system, a long-dormant satellite flickered to life, transmitting a single line of code written in both human and alien script. Project Dawn Protocol. Reinstated. The hunt had begun. The storms had raged for days, turning the skies above the Ellerin capital into a maelstrom of fire and ash. Drones still patrolled the ruins, scanning endlessly for the being the Council had named an abomination. But they no longer searched with certainty, because rumors had begun to spread. Rumors of someone who healed the wounded with a touch, who spoke both the sacred tongue of the clans and the forgotten code of the humans, who glowed with the light of two souls. Deep beneath the city, in the forgotten vaults where the first settlers of this world had once stored their archives, the hybrid walked in silence. The walls around them pulsed faintly with alien glyphs, ancient and half-erased. Their hands brushed the surface, and the symbols flared to life. Not in one language, but in two. Ellerin's script intertwined with human binary, forming patterns that no one had seen in millennia. Aric's voice whispered softly in their mind. "You know what this means, don't you?" "Yes," the hybrid murmured. "They hid the truth, and feared the connection that created me." They reached the central chamber, a vast hall of crystalline data spires, humming with energy. At its heart lay a sealed core, its containment runes dark. The hybrid placed their hand on it, and the air trembled. "Access denied," said an ancient voice from the core, mechanical, cold. The hybrid's eyes glowed faintly. "Access restored." The vault erupted in light. Holograms flickered to life around them. Images of humans and Ellerin standing together, exchanging knowledge, shaking hands under twin suns. The ancient pact, the first contact, forgotten by time and buried by pride. "They were allies once," Aric's voice said. "Not enemies." "They will be again," the hybrid replied. Above ground, the Council was in chaos. Warships had taken to the skies once more. Cities fortified themselves, expecting another purge. But as the hybrid ascended from the depths, the storm clouds began to thin, replaced by an unnatural calm. The Council's command chambers flared with alarm. "We've detected a massive energy spike beneath the capital." Veyra's mother rose from her throne, her face pale. "It's her," she whispered. "She's coming back." Moments later, the great doors of the council hall shuddered open. The hybrid stepped inside. No guards dared to fire. The air around them shimmered with a quiet, pulsing field of light. Their steps were slow, deliberate. Their gaze met every elder's with calm intensity. "I didn't come to destroy you," the hybrid said, their voice carrying both human warmth and alien resonance. "I came to remind you of what you forgot." The High Elder rose, trembling with fury. You dare step here after violating the sacred code? I didn't violate it, the hybrid said softly. I fulfilled it. And with a motion of their hand, the chamber filled with the holographic memories from the vault. Images of the first human envoys, their faces open and unafraid. The first Elleran scientists, the shared experiments, the pact sealed under the binary suns. Together, we awaken the stars. The council fell silent. Every elder stared in stunned disbelief as the truth unfolded around them. Not war, not conquest, but cooperation. You erased this history, the hybrid said, eyes glowing brighter. You called me a monster to hide your fear. That once, we were never alone. Veyra's mother stepped forward, voice breaking. That's impossible. Our records were rewritten. The hybrid interrupted. By those who feared imperfection. You called it purity. But purity killed everything that made you alive. The mother's gaze wavered, tears forming in her eyes. She took one hesitant step forward. Veyra? The hybrid smiled faintly. She's still here. So is he. Then the hybrid placed their hands on the council dais, and the entire hall ignited in white-blue light. The holograms expanded outward, broadcasting across the entire planet. Every citizen saw it, the ancient alliance, the shared creation, the faces of the first generation that walked between worlds. And then they saw her, Veyra Aric, standing in the center of it all. Not human, not alien, both. The transmission spread faster than the military could stop it. Across the planet, the drones hesitated. Cities fell silent. The people began to remember what their leaders had buried. Veyra's mother fell to her knees. My child, she whispered. You were what we feared, and what we needed. The hybrid looked down at her, their voice trembling with both strength and grief. You gave me life. He gave me purpose. Together, we gave you truth. Alarms wailed through the building. Incoming signatures. Human fleet detected in orbit. The council panicked. They've returned to finish the war. But the hybrid only smiled. No, they came because I called them. They reached up, touching their temple. Transmission complete. Far above, in the cold vacuum of space, the human flagship Andromeda Dawn received a signal. The crew stared at the decoded message. A voice, clear and melodic, echoing through both alien and human channels simultaneously. This is Veyra Aric. The war you remember was never between us. It was within us. The time to end it is now. On the planet below, the hybrid's glow intensified until their entire body became light, dissolving into a radiant storm that swept across the capital. The waves of energy disabled weapons, shut down targeting systems, and reactivated the ancient planetary grid that had once connected both species. As the light spread, people looked up, seeing not destruction, but the merging of two skies. The twin suns aligned for the first time in recorded history. And through the radiance, Aric's voice echoed in her mind once more. You did it. Veyra smiled, tears tracing down her glowing face. We did it. Her body began to fade, the energy of the merge reaching its limit. You're not dying, Aric's voice said gently. You're becoming what we were meant to be. The hybrid looked up toward the heavens, the sky alive with light, the human ships lowering their weapons, the alien fleet standing down, and whispered, You found me. Now they'll find themselves. And then the light consumed everything. When it cleared, there was silence. The warships hung motionless in the air. The council chamber was empty except for the faint shimmer of residual energy glowing where she had stood. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Veyra's mother lifted her head toward the stars. Forgive us, she whispered. High above, on the human flagship, the comms officer stared at the signal repeating through every channel in the system. A single voice, familiar, resonant, speaking one final line that carried across galaxies. This is Veyra Aric. We remember you. And for the first time in centuries, both races lowered their weapons and looked at the stars not as enemies, but as one. The light faded from the heavens. The silence lingered, and a new dawn began.